Pokeballs, base building, making babies, helicopters, super cool factories. And is that Shrek? This is Craftopia. Craftopia is an incredibly ambitious survival crafting game where you explore various islands, build bases, slay monsters, level up your character with a huge skill tree, and expanding your technology through Age Evolution! There really is a lot to this game, and it's come a long way since I last reviewed it about a year ago. In my last review, I thought it wasn't quite ready yet. Now let's see where it stands 1 year later. In this review, I'm going to mainly cover where the game currently is without doing too many comparisons on how it was. So if you want more comparisons, you'll find that in the gameplay video I released with this one. Craftopia's gameplay is overall incredibly chill and well-paced. It does a good job of creating a beautiful atmosphere where you can play just how you want to play, whether you want to focus on base building, decoration, and automation, or if you'd rather just smack around bad guys all day using a huge variety of weapons and abilities. You start out the game by blowing up the earth by pressing an extremely tantalizing big red button, and you're off. You're sent out into a world full of small islands where you harvest everything they have to offer, from trees to ores to cows that drop from the sky. Using the resources you collect, you can start building crafting stations where you can start upgrading your weapons, armor, and crafting stations. Along with that, you get this fancy totem thing that lets you upgrade your building capabilities by throwing in the required items from that level. Each age evolution requires increasingly advanced materials and items, and each one increases the pool and technology of buildings you can put up, until you can start automating shit, create vehicles, and crazy technology using your most advanced buildings. The progression in this game is incredibly satisfying, and at least in the early game, it isn't too much of a grind and can go by pretty quick. As you explore each island, you fight shit, level up, and throw the skill points you gain into an expansive skill tree where you can choose what you want your character to specialize in. No judgment if you just want to put all your points into jumping, I get it. But if you're not just working on leg day, there are a ton of upgrades and abilities you can gain to level up whatever aspect of the game you like most. You can upgrade your weapon damage, unlock new magic abilities, and you can even upgrade your building capabilities if that's what you like to do most. And though it can be a bit overwhelming to choose what you want to do, you can always fall back on leg day. Luckily, if you decide you don't need to jump quite so high, you're able to reset your skill points at any time, which is pretty damn nice. After building your base and leveling up your characters, it's time to move on from Noob Island. You can do this by creating this giant portal slate thing and throwing materials at it to unlock new islands to explore. The islands each offer you a few different things. For one, you can usually get a cool new atmosphere to play in to freshen up the gameplay. Higher tier resources spawn more often on them, allowing for easier progression, and then there's these dungeons. Dungeons are a fun little diversion that every island has, and each one rewards you with a shit ton of weapons and a magic tablet you can give to the god of a tiny floating island for a bit of character progression. These dungeons have challenges you can complete, ranging from a racetrack where you can run into obstacles at a high speed, to the Fortnite Special, or my favorite, the Combat Dungeons. These dungeons pit you against a pack of monsters guarding the lair to a boss, and I'm happy to say there is now more than one boss in the dungeons, and the mechanics of the bosses have been expanded to be a lot more exciting. Though the progression is satisfying in the moment, and it goes by quickly if you know what you're doing, it never really felt like I was going anywhere. I could upgrade my technology and abilities, but to what end? In its current state, because there's no apparent goal to the game, it feels more like a sandbox than anything else, which doesn't really fit with a progression system like this. The combat system in this game is, in a word, varied. There are a ton of different options for combat. You can use a sword, archery, magic, or even animal companions. And while the animations for all the different weapons make them seem different, it all kind of ends up with you button mashing your mouse until the bad guys are dead. There's always the option of using your combat abilities, but from what I experienced, they didn't really add too much to the combat. Not as a primary method of combat, at least. While I loved using the magic abilities, they didn't seem to do all that much when compared to button mashing with melee weapons, which is just too bad. The magic and abilities all ended up being a secondary to running up and whacking enemies until they fell over, which felt kind of limiting to me. On a more positive note, the variety of enemies and their fighting mechanics does keep the combat a little bit more fresh, and the addition of more bosses and mini-bosses scattered across the world were super fun. The aspect of Craftopia that I had the best time with by far was the base building and automation. It was super satisfying when I got to the auto drills, conveyor belts, auto forges, and other tools I could finagle together to create a factory to do the work for me. Craftopia offers you a ton of options in how you can build your base. If you want to make it pretty, there are tons of options for it, though obviously that isn't my strong suit. What I love to do is to make a full functional base with jerry-rigged machines that work together to automate getting the things I need for progression. And this is where I think Craftopia excels right now. With all the options available to you, you can build just about anything and automate the mundane tasks of the game so you can chase progression in other areas. For me, this aspect of the game alone makes it worthwhile to play. The multiplayer aspect to this game is pretty fun, but honestly, I enjoyed it more as a single-player venture, mostly because of how the progression works. The biggest issue I had with multiplayer Craftopia is that the progression has you moving from island to island in order to further the game and collect rarer resources. And when you're playing with friends, you can't move alone. You have to all agree to basically abandon the base you've built together and start a new one, and with differences in playstyles, I found this difficult. Results may vary though. The progression itself in multiplayer was a bit too quick-paced. I was able to get to the level of automation in about 30 minutes when I was playing solo, and it's much less when playing with friends. I think the main draw to multiplayer Craftopia, again, has to be the base building. For me, building a base and automating resource collection or making a pretty village would be the main draw for the multiplayer in this game, but only if we could switch islands solo. We're just not there yet. It goes without saying that this game is gorgeous. I mean, shit, look at it. From the bases to the enemies, weapons, and the islands themselves, the graphics are varied as hell, and it's all very pleasant to look at. When you level up islands, there are a bunch of different kinds that you can land on, and some are just straight up pretty as hell. Look at this damn place. I could make a factory here, destroy the local ecosystem. The music is also beautiful and changes depending on which island you are on, which really helps change up the feel of the game. Overall, I liked coming back to Craftopia, and I'm glad I did. Though it feels a bit directionless, the multiplayer isn't quite what I'd hoped, and the combat didn't feel that great, the progression did feel great, and the base building and automation were all on point. It's obvious that this game still has a ways to go, but damn, is it on a good path. Thanks for watching. Like if you liked it, sub if you loved it, and I'll see you in the next one.